We are on our last formative for this unit. So this formative is your last opportunity to show yourself how well you're doing in this unit before we take our summative. After this formative, you'll have a couple days to work on the review guide before we take the summative. So this first one, according to a recent poll, 472 adults out of 3,614 earn at least $2,000 a week. What is the relative frequency of an individual not making at least $2,000 a week? So a relative frequency, I've gotten a couple questions from students about what is a relative frequency? Well, a relative frequency is just a fraction or a percent. So think of it again as a part out of a whole. And then converting that fraction into a percent so you have a clearer understanding of what those numbers are representing and how to explain it in context. I think most people will agree that percents are easier to understand than fractions are. So for this one, we have the 472 adults that earn at least $2,000 a week. But we want to know individuals that do not make at least $2,000 a week. So I'll take my total number of adults surveyed, subtract out the adults that do make $2,000, and I'll be left with adults that do not make $2,000 a week. So that's 3,142. All right, then I will take my part over the whole, and the part is adults not making $2,000 a week out of all that were surveyed. So that'll be the 3,142 divided by the total, which is 3,614. We type that into our calculator. We get 0.869. Remember to move your decimal point over 2 spaces to the right. And we get 86.9% of adults do not make over $2,000 a week. And remember to answer in the context of the problem so you get full points. Question number 2, suppose you owe $50 to each of your 4 friends, $25 to each of 3 friends, and $100 to your parents. If 2 friends each owe you $75, what is your net debt? All right, so you owe 4 friends $50, so negative 50, negative 50, negative 50, negative 50. Or I guess I don't need those commas. I'll just subtract all of them. Okay, so negative 50, minus 50, minus 50, minus 50. 3 friends is $25. So minus 25, minus 25, minus 25. And you owe your parents $100. And then you have 2 friends that owe you $75. So plus 75 plus 75. Type all that into your calculator. You get negative $225. Explain that in the context of the problem. You have a total debt of $225. Number 3, John scores 60 and 100 on 2 tests in a class. What is his average? Well, we have 60 points plus 100 points out of 2 tests. So our average is 160 divided by 2, 80 points or percent. Monica scores 80 and 80 on the same 2 tests that John took in the class. What is her average? 80 plus 80 divided by 2, 80%. If the mean is used to find information about the center of a set of two numbers, so the mean is telling us the center or the average of these numbers, what is it telling us about these students? And what is it not telling us? Well, the average is telling us that they both have the same test score average. So in the class, if we're just looking at the grade book, John and Monica have the same grade. However, what it's not telling us is that Monica is a more consistent test taker. She got an 80% on both of the tests in the class, whereas John failed the first test but got an A on the second test. So he's not as consistent. Yes, his average may be the same as Monica's, but he really struggled on that first test that he took. Number 4, simplify. Show your work by cross-canceling. So we have -5/4 divided by 25/2 times -20/3. So we've got division, so I'm going to flip that fraction and make it multiplication. So -5/4 times 2/25 times a -20/3. Now I'm going to cross cancel because I don't want to do 5 times 2 times 20 and then divided by 4 times 25 times 3 and then reduce in the end because I hate reducing. So I'm going to cancel things out. So we have this 4 and this 2. We'll bring that to a 2, this to a 1. Cancel the 2 with the 20. I'm going to leave the negative. I'm not going to touch the negative until the very end. So we'll have a 1 and a 10. And then let's see. Let's do the 5 and the 25. So this, that's the same color. 5 and 25. This will go down to a 1. This will go to a 5. And then that 5 and 10. 5 and 10, this will go to a 1, and this will go to a 2. So I have a -1 times 1 times -2. That leaves me with a +2 in the top. Since I already used the negatives in the top, I'm not worried about them in the bottom. So 1 times 1 times 3 is 3. So it looks like my answer is 2/3. Number 5, find the endpoint of a segment if the midpoint is 4, 6 and one of the endpoints is 7, -2. Hint, draw a picture to help you visualize this. So we have a line, we have endpoint, midpoint, endpoint, and I don't really care what my line looks like so long as it's a line, has 2 endpoints and a midpoint. I'm not too concerned with the positive and negative numbers of my coordinates. We have the midpoint at 4, 6, and we have an endpoint at 7, -2. All right. Now remember, a midpoint is actually just the average of the x's and the average of your y's. So I'm going to take a look at my x values. This 4 is the average of some number and 7. So I am, to get from 4 to 7, x values, I went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So this is x values. We went +3. So to get to this x value down here on the left, I'm going to go down by 3. So 1, 2, 3. X value -3. So 4 minus 3 gives me a 1. And I will do the same thing for my x value, which I know doesn't make sense because the 6 is on the left and the -2 is on the right, which is backwards on a number line. But how far apart are these two numbers? So from 6 to 0, that's 6 units away. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That gets me to 0. And then to get down to -2, I'm going down 2. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Those are 8 units apart. Okay, 8 units apart. So then I'm also going to go, so this was y value. We subtracted 8 because -2 is less than 6. So on this left-hand side, y value plus 8. So I'll add 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You get the gist. That's 8. It's not really, because I did a terrible job drawing that. But we're adding 8 to 6, so we get 14. So my second endpoint is 1, 14. And the last one, number 6, the average number of gorillas in a cage at one time at a local zoo was measured for 4 days. The gorillas in the cage were 4, 6, 7, and 10 respectively. So one day there was 4, one day there was 7, or one day there was 4, one day there was 6, one day there was 7, one day there was 10. If the average measured for 5 days was 7, how many gorillas were in the cage on day 5? There was 4, second day there was 6, third day there was 7, fourth day there was 10. We don't know how many there were on the 5th day, but we know that we were measuring it for 5 days total, and the average was 7. So now I'm going to solve for x. So we'll add these numbers up. 4 plus 6 is 10, plus another 10 is 20, plus 7. So 27 plus x divided by 5 equals 7. Now I'm going to cross multiply to get rid of my fraction. So I have 27 plus x equals 5 times 7 is 35. Subtract 27 to both sides, so x equals 8 gorillas in the cage on the 5th day.